r/AskReddit. High school teachers of Reddit. What's the most awkward position a student has ever put you in? My English teacher was put in a very uncomfortable situation a few years ago when one day during class one of the girls asked if she could use the bathroom, and naturally he said in a little bit. 5 minutes later she raises her hand again and my teacher replied, "I'll write you a pass right now." Then the girl said never mind. It went back in. The look on my teacher's face was amazing. The duck. Tampon. I'm guessing she's not pushing turds back up her intestines, unless she is. My English teacher has been put into some uncomfortable situations at my school. He's in his 30s. Has a caustic sense of humor. And the ravages of time haven't reached him quite yet. So needless to say, the girls at my school have gone a bit nuts. The most outstanding example I can think of is when a freshman girl, who he doesn't even teach, found his wedding photos online, photoshopped her face onto his wife's, and circulated them. So like Indiana Jones levels of adoration then. That I hit was the definition of extra. Student threatened to strangle me with his iPod cord and then didn't. What a tease. Edit. Holy hit. Thanks for the gold. Cheryl/Carol. One of my very good looking male friends is a science/maths teacher. He's one of those mad people that loves to make maths fun, and honestly his classes are like a damn performance. It's beautiful, but a lot of the girls in the class just giggle and ask him if he has a girlfriend. He kept deflecting them and concentrated on making the class fun, but then they got nasty to a quiet girl he paid too much attention to. She was actually interested in math, and he gave her some extra material after class that he thought she'd like. He fully put his foot down and demanded a parent meeting with all of the girls in question parents, and told them straight up they could either act like mature people or get out, and that he didn't deserve to be borderline sexually harassed while working. Most of the parents were just mortified their daughters would behave like that, but a few were like it's a compliment, etc. Luckily admin were on his side. That's a thing I don't understand. You tell someone, hey, this makes me uncomfortable, and they angrily insist that it's a compliment instead of apologizing. Good for him for standing up for himself. That's the moment you turn all your attention to one of the parents and go, Mr. X. If your wife came home from work and told you several of her male coworkers constantly said her she's pretty hot and she should join them after work, would you consider that compliments or harassment? Not a teacher, but my buddy asked our fairly attractive physics professor to prom. It was really hard to watch. What did she say? She was caught completely off guard and just let out a long, "Oh wackwardum no." I'm a gay teacher. One day when I was teaching middle school and one of my female students told me she had to go to the bathroom, she came back and told me in front of the class that her period came. It was her first period. She had no idea what to do. She was not wearing anything, and she was in great pain. You could see the blood coming in. I calmly told her to go to the nurse. I'm a 28-year-old gay male, and I still have no ducking clue how a period works. And to my student, Brittany, it is okay to cringe at the fact that you told your gay teacher and 20 other students that you started your adventure to womanhood. Because of you, I carry pads in my desk. This is why, as soon as my twin girls hit middle school, I packed them pads in their bags. They hadn't started to menstruate yet, but it was a just-in-case tactic. You're a good dude for staying stocked. Thank God I teach 3rd graders and don't have to worry about it. Ugh. I started mine that early. I remember it exactly because I hadn't had the talk yet because I was so young. I was at school and some of my female friends held a funeral for me because we all thought I was going to die. When I was teaching high school, a little twit named Austin found out it was my 45th birthday and launched into a spiel in front of the class how I should be sure to get a colonoscopy as I was now at that age. Well, I see I'm not the first to tell you. You should get a colonoscopy. College student here. A classmate in my police investigations course is the instructor's granddaughter. One day we were talking about sex assaults and the instructor asked what type of evidence could be left behind on a condom. The granddaughter quickly raised her hand and said, DNA from saliva. The instructor, her grandfather, asked her to elaborate. I was horrified as I watched her gesture, as though she had a condom in her hand, and ripped the package open with her mouth. Hence the possibility of saliva evidence. I definitely thought you were going to say she demonstrated putting it on with her mouth. Hoped. In middle school during X-Ed, the teacher was preaching abstinence until marriage. The teacher was single, so a student asked him if he was a virgin. Awkward for the teacher, because he didn't know which was worse, admit he was a hypocrite or admit he was a 40-year-old virgin. He turned bright red and let us go to recess early. That's not an appropriate question. Moving on. Edit, but that's easy to say when I'm not on the spot. Better answer, I wish I'd waited until marriage. Don't make the same mistakes I did. Had a failing student stay after class to ask me, if I suck your peen will you give me a B? Very glad there was a trusted adult close by. The real tragedy is that she didn't even ask for an A. What kind of self-esteem would you need in order to offer a BJ for just a B? Well, she did only offer a job. When I did student teaching at a high school, one male student in the string ensemble I was leading asked, in front of others, if he could learn cello because he wanted to play something he could hold between his legs. I have the best music teacher. He says mildly inappropriate stuff like finger your G string, or when we weren't playing on the D string loud enough he said give me more D. I swear whenever something like that happens the class doesn't recover. We need a good half hour before we can start playing with a straight face. Sometimes he'll stories about his life, which are always entertaining. Very interesting guy. The dude got a shout out from Chance the Rapper in one of his songs. Edit, for those wondering which song. It was Everything's Good, good as outro. When I was in high school, I had a music teacher like that. He would always say inappropriate, slightly XL stuff, and since he was young and hip we all loved him. I had him 3 out of 5 periods my senior year, jazz band, jazz choir, tar, and considered him a friend and a great teacher. He disappeared about a month before graduation, replaced by a substitute teacher with no explanation. And then the news of his child porn addiction came to light. He used school computers. He had hidden cameras set up in the closet. He encouraged the drama kids wrote change in. He had a relationship with a 14-year-old student. Teachers making sexualized jokes to students is now a bit of a red flag to me. Ran into one of my students at the store. The only things in my cart were duct tape, tampons, and motor oil. He looked at my items, and his eyes got large. Not sure what he was imagining I was going to do, but we both acted like it never happened the next day in school. Motor oil to lube up the tampon, and duct tape to keep it up in there. Clearly. r/knock and text. Some context. I teach students with intellectual disabilities. Imagine being an ATO in a teenager's body. These kids are just honest and always say what is on their mind. Not a lot of understanding of social norms and socially appropriate behavior. One of my students comes up to me and asks to speak to me outside of the classroom. I thought maybe he was dealing with something personal and needed to talk about it, so I said okay. He proceeds to tell me that I'm the easiest thing he has ever seen. I had to try to squash that right away. I told him that he can't say that to me because I'm his teacher. It's not appropriate, etc. After that, he asked for a hug. Lesson not learned. Edit, I didn't use person first language. I work with disabled kids as well. It can be so difficult to not crack up at sexually inappropriate stuff. I have told a boy to stop jerking off to pictures of pregnant women in school more times than I can count. My personal favorite was when I asked a kid if he was hungry shortly before lunch. With zero hesitation he yells, "Hungry for some pussy." Obviously this stuff is frowned upon, but I still find it hilarious. That is hilarious. I have a hard time not cracking up too. My coworkers get mad at me sometimes for laughing and encouraging them. I had a student tell me, quietly in the back of the room, how she was struggling to concentrate and would likely need to leave in class for an extended period of time because she had a UT. I spoke with her after class making sure she was alright. I had to find a very delicate way of explaining the importance of peeing after X and gently reminding her to always use protection, without directly saying those words. I'm a male, and it was in a conservative town, so I could have gotten into serious trouble for not encouraging abstinence only. I just wanted to make sure she was informed and safe. People who teach abstinence only are on my hate list. How can teens learn safe sex when they are only taught to fear it? I absolutely hated it. The program was called Creating Positive Relationships, so kids in health class heard they were learning CPR. When the time came around, then they were just told the evils of premarital sex and the ineffectiveness of protection. The kids were given pledge cards for them to sign promising to stay pure until marriage. I always felt bad for the custodial staff who had to pick up hundreds of those off of the floor later that day. I teach middle school. I hope that counts. Last week, a 13-year-old boy asked me what happens when a girl gets turned on. All I could say was, go ask an experienced friend. I'm going to pretend this didn't just happen. I'm a young female teacher. Yikes. Shoulder said yay sure here watch and squirt him with ketchup. Till women have explosive periods when they are horny. Teach middle school, so most of the time it's awkward. Fairly soon after I'd broken up with a long-term boyfriend, a student asked me why we'd broken up. I swear, it wasn't weird that the kid knew they'd seen me with him around town. So that was fun. Then the kid threatened to take him out for me. A 6th grader asked me how reproduction can define an organism as living vs non-living. If boys cannot make babies, shouldn't this mean that boys are non-living? I sent that kid right on down to the health teacher. That's actually kind of a good point, if that's how life was defined to him. Kids thinking like a scientist, if you think about it. A boy in a dance class at my school was going to have to wear skin-tight leggings in an upcoming performance. Now, serious male dancers usually wear what is called a support, like a heavy-duty supportive G-string, under leggings to tuck everything away neatly. However, the school I teach at isn't a specialist dance school and we don't have many male students. So this wasn't an issue I have had to deal with before. It was decided that the school would purchase the support for him, since we had to make a trip to a dance shop anyway and we knew what to look for. Cue an awkward phone call with the student's mother to explain why his teachers were buying him a G-string. Could have you just told him that he can buy online from Russia like Dance Direct? They are also called dancer belts. I was about to say, we call them dance belts in my major, although a lot of the actors/dancers call them thongs. I'm a new teacher, in my early 20s with a student who is almost too old to be in high school, 21. I was really short with him one day because he was being an asshole. And he responded, I know why you're so crabby today. You're mad because your boyfriend beat you. He then yelled at me the whole way down the stairs as I escorted him to the principal, demanding that I tell him why he was in trouble. Made me super uncomfortable. Because he was almost my age and clearly didn't respect me as a teacher. His comments were way over the line, and he got removed from my class for it. Edited because I shouldn't be trusted to type anything before bed. Where is 21 almost too old for high school? I can understand up to 19 if they are on the back end of the age cutoff and were held back a year. But 21, if you don't manage to complete the graduation requirements, you can stay in high school until 21. At least in my state/district. Current teacher at college is a young man in his 20s. Those considered popular girls in my class will constantly call his name for help, but sometimes they just call his name for his attention and give him nicknames which he always become awkward in response and just goes, "Don't call me that," and ends up standing awkwardly with one of the straight faces that says, "I want to stand over there now." Edit. I'm in a rather small college. There's quite a few people well known in the college, ranging from the probably gonna be a rapist to the ones who bunk, drink, and cause trouble. It's a lot different than a large college which I was in one moving to this one. Can confirm there's no popular or unpopular in big colleges, but in this small college, there is. Not sure about others. I'm in the UK. At my job, one of the managers looks like a stereotypical dad in his mid-30s. Young, attractive, has a family. We have this one girl, what calls him Daddy Frank. Then all the other girls started calling him Daddy Frank. My first day he was showing me around and a few of the girls started their thing, "Daddy Frank, I need to get into the supply closet. Daddy Frank, a customer needs a manager," etc etc. This entire time he is turning beet red and giving me a look like I swear this isn't what it looks like. He asks if I have any questions, and I said with a completely serious tone, do I have to call you Daddy Frank? He was good about it. I interviewed for a job as a receptionist at a farmer's insurance one time. Keep in mind I was a 20-year-old guy. Things my boss did. 1. Said I was interviewing to be his ex-retiree. 2. Asked me if my legs would look as good in a skirt as his maid's legs. 3. Called his assistant/co-agent his maid. She would always say, "John, I've told you I don't enjoy being called that." 4. Asked to look at a picture on my phone one day and then started swiping through my pictures. I had to forcibly grab my phone back while he was chortling like a child. 5. Asked a black customer who had just gotten the new car and wanted to add it to his policy. "And where'd you steal that caddy from?" 6. Would say to any customer who looked remotely of Hispanic origin while he was typing their name into the computer, HERNANDEZ. "Yeah, you look like a Hernandez to me." 7. Would embarrass another guy in the building who would pop in occasionally by saying out loud, "Bring any hookers back for me this time." Cause his friend took frequent trips to the Ukraine. Turns out that one was justified. Though. The guy popped in one day wearing sunglasses. My boss asked him what he was hiding. Guy takes him off, and he had one eye swollen shut. And a big cut across the middle of his nose. Turns out on his last trip to the Ukraine, while taking out his girlfriends, he got jumped and mugged. They broke his eye socket. 8. Anytime a telemarketer would call who spoke in any kind of accent, he'd ask them where they were from. No, really. Where? And then start speaking in fake Indian gibberish with the intermittent 7-11 thrown in for good measure. The guy was like 60 something and had no idea about boundaries, appropriate jokes, or acceptable work behavior. He was like a big, racist, homophobic 10-year-old and had been selling insurance with farmers for around 30 years. Found out later his dad was a judge up in Dallas back in the day, so he was used to getting away with literally everything his entire life. Make sure to like and subscribe so we can watch together.